Perfecto, muchas gracias. Ok, bueno, buenos días, buenas tardes y buenas noches. Es un gusto para mí darles la bienvenida a todas y todes y todos a este webinario, a este espacio de diálogo global y aprendizaje mutuo. Mi nombre es Elizabeth o Eli, soy de Ecuador, pero ahora estoy viviendo en Suecia y trabajando en RFSU como oficial de proyecto. Y bueno, estoy muy contenta de compartir este espacio con organizaciones aliadas y activistas alrededor del mundo. Un par de cositas técnicas antes de empezar. Unas que les pedimos que por favor silencien sus micrófonos durante las presentaciones y también les pedimos que elijan el idioma que prefieren haciendo clic en el mundito de abajo. Si tienen problemas con eso.
If you have any issues, please send us a short notice in the chat. The meeting will last approximately an hour and a half between the three presentations, the opening and closing. It's a pleasure to welcome you very shortly. Let me introduce the organizations supporting this webinar, three organizations in all. So first, I give the floor to my dear colleague, Eva Jacobson, Program Officer at RFSU. Eva, you have the floor. Well, thank you very much, Eli. It's a great pleasure to join you all and share this space with such excellent individuals. First of all, for those of you who are not familiar with this platform that is called Learning for Change, it is a platform developed along with our partners, exchanging among countries and regions, aimed at strengthening its members through disseminating knowledge and to inspire, to share our experiences and accomplishments. There are three different clusters dealing with sexual orientation, gender identity, SOGI, and comprehensive education in sexuality and abortion, which is this cluster. And with respect to RFSU as an organization, it is an organization that has worked. It's been working for almost 90 years. Next year, we will be celebrating our 90th anniversary. We've always worked with sexual and reproductive rights, first in Sweden and then in cooperation with Latin American and Caribbean partners, as well as Africa, Asia, and Europe. And the two other co-organizers of this event are very valuable to RFSU, especially with respect to the issue that we will be addressing today, legal and safe abortion. And in Latin America and the Caribbean, we have cooperated with FOS Feminista and the Network of Catholics for Choice as of 2014 to advance the safe and legal abortion agenda. The CDD has been very important in the development and implementation of this initiative, thanks to their experience, their knowledge, their courage, and we are very happy to be able to collaborate in this initiative. Thank you very much. Thank you, Eva, for your introduction. And we will now give the floor to Susana Medina, Co-Director of Sustainable Ecosystem and Regional Approaches of FOS Feminista. Susana. Thank you, Eli. Hello, all. It is a great pleasure to join this meeting, this webinar, along with such prestigious organizations in the struggle and in the commitment to enable access to legal and safe abortion for women in our region. This is an extraordinary event, and to also have the space to discuss our experiences, the experience of Catholics for Choice in terms of decriminalization of abortion. Indeed, Catholics for Choice has been a strategic partner in this work, and from the space of regional initiatives that we coordinate jointly with many of you, from FOS Feminista and RFSU, it is outstanding moment to be able to take this time today to exchange learning, to reflect the space of Iniciativas Regional. It is indeed a space for collaboration, solidarity, for change. It is also a space for action And we are convinced that whatever we've managed to develop under this regional initiative as of 2014 is a very significant part of the accomplishment of the feminist movement in the three countries that we will be discussing about today, Argentina, Mexico, and Colombia. And finally, from our space, we believe that it will be the first of many, many webinars that we are proposing, that we are suggesting from Iniciativa Regional, to say that for FOS Feminista, it is essential that these exchanges serve to learn, to sow, to harvest, and to collectively continue considering about these advocacy strategies that will allow us to advance legal and safe abortion in other countries. It's a pleasure to join you today, and I will be listening to what you have to share. Thank you, Susana. Beautiful remarks. And finally, Griselda Mata, co-coordinator of the Latin American and Caribbean Network of Catholics for Choice. Griselda, you have the floor. Thank you very much, dear colleagues, sisters, friends, and thank you for joining. Thank you for contributing to this joint construction of this new way forward. We in the Latin American and Caribbean Network of Catholics for Choice welcome you wholeheartedly to this webinar that has been organized with a lot of joy, but also with a lot of challenges and hope. And of course, to discuss the decriminalization of abortion from the perspective of Catholics for Choice and the experience of our Catholics from Argentina, Colombia, and Mexico. The network, with this purpose of historically defending the right to choose our freedom of consciousness and recognize this difference, religious plurality, diversity, different diversities. We feel very, very happy to be able to be part of this webinar. For us, it is very, very important to make the experiences, major challenges visible, the ones that we've experienced in decriminalizing abortion in Latin America and Caribbean in this very long road that we have walked through, this constant struggle to advocating for the bodily autonomy and to be able to decide based on our freedom of consciousness. We are all different, diverse, dissident women from the 10 countries that are members of this network fighting for free and safe abortion. And also on behalf of the network, I want to thank so much support that we've received from partner organizations such as RFSU and FOS Feminista, which undoubtedly in this very long way of dialogue and advocacy, it's very strategic and very important to have them by our side. So we thank all of you who have joined this meeting, and let us continue with this webinar. We will be here participating fully. Thank you. Well, thank you very much. Very powerful work, Griselda. Thank you for sharing. And thank you, dear colleagues, Eva, Susana, and Griselda. And with this, we bring this opening to an end. And with this, I now give the floor to Paula Stensoro, coordinator of the network, who will be coordinating 3 presentations that we will be listening to. And I seize this opportunity to thank everybody involved in the organization and coordination of this webinar. As Gris said, it's been an effort filled with joy and love, but also many, many challenges. So once again, thank you for making this possible. Thank you, Paula, and thank you all. And it's a pleasure to be part of this space. Paula, you have the floor. Thank you so very much, Elizabeth, and good morning. Good morning, all. Let us proceed with the second part of our webinar, in which we want to share our experiences, the experiences of Catholics for Choice in Argentina, Colombia, and Mexico. I'm Paula Stensoro, co-coordinator, along with Griselda, of the Latin American and Caribbean Network of Catholics for Choice. I am I am part of Catholic for Choice Bolivia, and it's a pleasure to have arrived at this very important moment and to start with the second part of our meeting. And for this, I will begin with Catholics for Choice Argentina. And I'd like to introduce our presenter, who is MÓNICA MENINI. She is the coordinator of the lobbying area of Catholics for Choice in Argentina. A very short resume. She has been, as of the National Campaign for Legal, Safe, and Free Abortion in Argentina, she's been a stronghold. She is a lawyer by training, and most of her professional practice has been in Salta, a highly conservative province in the north part of the country. From there, she assisted in some of the litigations that have established jurisprudence in terms of legal and reproductive rights, sexual and reproductive rights. And she is part of the legal bar of Catholics for Choice in Argentina, and she coordinates, as I said, the lobbying area from where she develops a line of actions with members of the First Nations. So MÓNICA, remembering that it is only 15 minutes for your presentation, we welcome you wholeheartedly, and we thank you for your participation, and we leave you with this first experience to share. Go ahead.
Bueno, muchas gracias. Muchas gracias a todas, a todos los que nos acompañan, a las personas que han organizado, ¿no? Porque esto se organiza con personas, con mucho esfuerzo, poniendo todas sus capacidades, su tiempo. Realmente un orgullo, además, para mí estar en esta ocasión, y un agradecimiento también a CDD de Argentina, que me da a mí esta oportunidad entre tantas compañeras que podemos conversar y contar las experiencias de lo que se llama en este caso la experiencia argentina. No quiero tomar mucho más tiempo y sí explicarles a ustedes de qué se trata lo que quiero expresar en este corto tiempo. ¿Por qué decimos corto tiempo en principio? Porque nuestra experiencia tiene muchos años. Nuestra experiencia viene desde el comienzo de la democracia en Argentina, luego de una gran dictadura, allá por los años 80, con mujeres feministas que hablaron, que tomaron temas desde la Comisión de Aborto, desde otras organizaciones, que luego, a través de los encuentros nacionales de mujeres que en Argentina se llevan adelante hace 35 años y que hoy se están renombrando como encuentros plurinacionales de mujeres y diversidad. Desde ese lugar, hace mucho tiempo atrás, las católicas por el derecho a decidir de Argentina, de la mano de nuestra enorme compañera Marta Alanís, que es una referente y una mentora de lo que ha sido este movimiento en Argentina, nos invitó hacia mayo del 2005 a conformar una campaña. Las católicas invitaron a más de 70 activistas de todo el país, que pertenecíamos a 12 provincias de Argentina, que tiene 24, y nos juntamos allí, en Córdoba, a instancia de las católicas, y en esos días, en unos cuantos días de trabajo, pensamos las primeras estrategias, que fue tener un lema, el lema de nuestra campaña, y lanzar esa campaña. Desde ahí, la verdad que las estrategias que hemos desarrollado han sido innumerables, muchos sentidos, y por eso nos es medio complicado a Argentina contar toda esa experiencia, y nos interesa entonces en estos momentos, porque hemos tenido ya muchas invitaciones a contar la experiencia argentina, y siempre decimos no nos alcanza el tiempo para contarla. Entonces empezamos a pensar qué es lo que tenemos que contar. Cuando comenzó la campaña, allá por, como digo, por el 2005, dijimos, salimos de allí a todas dispersas ya para nuestros propios territorios con un lema que ha sido educación sexual para decidir, anticonceptivos para no abortar y aborto legal para no morir. Con un nombre de esa campaña. Esa campaña se llama Campaña Nacional por el Derecho al Aborto Legal, Seguro y Gratuito. Y dijimos, vamos a usar un día de la agenda feminista, que es el 28 de mayo, el Día de Acción Global por la Salud de las Mujeres, para lanzar nuestra campaña, todas juntas, el mismo día, al mismo tiempo. Las primeras grandes estrategias de esto que hoy es un movimiento. Y en ese sentido quiero en esta oportunidad recalcar algunas cuestiones. En principio, siempre hablamos del derecho al aborto. Y cuando ya estuvimos más cerca de lograr que el aborto sea un derecho en nuestro país, hicimos mucho hincapié en que es un derecho. No solo queríamos que el aborto salga del Código Penal como un delito, también incidimos y creamos estrategias para que el aborto sea garantizado en nuestro país, y a eso le llamamos legalización. Y entonces salimos a explicar en nuestra incidencia en los medios y en diferentes lugares, salimos a explicar la diferencia entre despenalizar y legalizar para nosotras. Una cuestión era sacarlo del Código Penal.
And legalizing. We wanted it to be erased from the Penal Code. In 2012, we managed to have a decision, the award called the FAL Award. That's the acronym, or rather the first letters of the name of a person who wanted an abortion, who required an abortion because she'd been raped. This was a cause accepted in our penal code since 1921. But we needed to put it into practice. There were many obstacles, especially in the justice, in the legal framework. So that award was very important for our country. And one of the strategies we discussed was, at the beginning they said, well, these causes, rape, health, risk of life, are causes that in Argentina allow the interruption of pregnancy without terms. So this abortion is not punishable. And we decided to say, no, not punishable. We have to say it's a legal abortion, because we always wanted to emphasize the legalization of abortion. So what does it mean? Journalists started to ask, why do you talk about decriminalization and legalization? What is the difference? People started asking us, what does it mean? And in the networks, we started to say it. One thing is to erase it from the penal code as a crime. And the second thing is to legally give access to the interruption of pregnancy. Voluntary interruption of pregnancy. I think.
¿Estoy bien ahí? Ah, bien, ahí dejé de escuchar a las traductoras. Bueno, entonces, y la legalización, como les decía, es garantizar esa práctica en el sistema médico de salud y los subsistemas, tanto público como privado, aclarando que nosotros en nuestro país tenemos un sistema público de salud que es gratuito, pero nosotras pedíamos que el aborto legal seguro y gratuito sea gratuito, además en todos los sistemas y subsistemas, y que esté dentro del plan médico obligatorio de nuestro país. Esto es, que es gratuito, como efectivamente lo hemos logrado, tanto en el sistema de salud público como en el sistema de salud privado, las obras sociales, los sistemas de salud de las universidades y otros que también existen, ¿no?, de sindicatos y demás, de gremios. Y otra tarea importantísima. Nosotras considerábamos desde un inicio que era muy importante trabajar la despenalización social. Para trabajar la despenalización social, ahí sí decíamos, ¿no? Porque era como, ¿por qué despenalización social? No está escrito en piedra lo que le sucede a nuestra sociedad y a nuestras culturas. Sin embargo, el estigma está, sin embargo, el miedo está, la acusación, el dedo acusador de los demás está. Por eso le llamábamos la despenalización social. ¿Cómo lograr que mucha más gente cambie esa mirada dentro de nuestra sociedad y nos acompañe a llegar a hacer transformaciones que son legislativas? ¿Cómo lo íbamos a lograr? De todas las formas posibles. Siempre digo, no son palabras mías, son palabras de Marta Lanís, que dice, nada nos pareció poco y nada nos pareció imposible. Entonces, una de las estrategias, usamos todas, el arte, la comunicación, el encontrarnos con los organismos de derechos humanos. De hecho, nuestro pañuelo, que es de color verde, es muy importante, es un símbolo, el pañuelo,
This is a
como
symbol
es un símbolo de derechos humanos
of
en nuestro
human
país,
rights.
que venía desde
This
las madres y
handkerchief,
las abuelas de Plaza de Mayo. Por supuesto, nosotras ese pañuelo, muchas de ustedes tal vez lo saben o no, es un pañuelo que, que los organismos utilizan, pero solamente lo pueden usar las madres y las abuelas de Plaza de Mayo, el pañuelo blanco. Entonces, cambiamos el color al verde. Y fueron las católicas por el derecho a decidir las primeras que los mandaron a hacer y los repartieron. Repartimos este pañuelo gratuitamente, diciendo, ¿querés ponerte el pañuelo? Hasta que un día, cerca del 2018, llegamos a ver ese pañuelo por la calle, todo el mundo lo tenía puesto o en su mochila o en su mano. Pero desde las estrategias, para ir cerrando, más importantes, la creación de redes. De las estrategias más importantes,
the most important strategies had to do with sectors that would include this in their daily work, working with people who need it. One of the most important in 2015 was the creation of Healthcare Professional Network for the Right to Choose. That's the name of that network. Professionals in the healthcare sectors that have arguments, that have the training, that know how to discuss this, how to talk about this. They talk with each other, and the activists know it. They know that there is a healthcare professional that is friendly, that it will be with them, that is amiable, and will help the person to ensure that the person is helped with love, a lot of love, with good practices, and also people who help them, feminists that go through abortion, and other organizations that give support to the women that ensure that they can have the safe abortion outside the system. First, because at the beginning it was forbidden, but also a network of teachers. Why do we have to talk about abortion in schools? Because integral sexual education has to include abortion as a right. We have autonomy. We need to have transparency, confidentiality, and all of this has to be learned in the system, in the educational system. So we also advocate for materials, and that the state supports teachers that should include in their sexual education the right to abortion. And another network is the network of universities for the right to choose. It is there that healthcare professionals are trained. It is there that all professionals are trained in all areas of knowledge. And of course, we insist on people who work in legal system, psychology, medicine. And right now, we have 42 universities in our country who are undertaking every year. They have a class in which they deal with abortion. Professionals and students can freely join that class. And that, as you can imagine, has been a very strong advocacy work, because of course we need resolutions from the universities. And to conclude, because I know I'm already gone over my time, so another important issue is communication. And how do we do the communication? Let me tell you that it's been sustained during many years. During the pandemic, communication that's been sustained by activists. We didn't have groups that are very specialized in these issues, but rather people that use all their capability, that think about this every day. I don't know, I always say this, but 24 hours a day, not only did these people work, take care of their family, do everything that we do, we have to do, they were thinking about how to communicate, how to design the campaigns, what's the letter, what's the color, what's the gaze. And those colleagues, and that's why I want to underscore, the colleagues that activate communication decided, together with another group, which articulated the campaign. I was the honor of articulating the campaign in my province for years, and especially during the times when we achieved decriminalization of abortion in Argentina. And I'm a lawyer. I don't know about communication, but I do know what happens in my territory. I know very well what's happening in my territory. And that is what I have to tell the people who do communications, and they have to understand and to be attentive. It's been a very, very large work.
The photographers, the communications based on collaboration. So, and to close, and I swear that I will speak no more after this. Why do we have to explain from this approach? Because frequently we see that people say, we will never be able to bring millions of people to the streets to mobilize as they did in Argentina. That work of placing millions of people in the street, even we were baffled by it. Even we were baffled. But before that, for many, many years, we had worked with the universities, with the high schools, the trade unions, human rights agencies in the different districts and neighborhoods. You have to lose all your biases. The first thing you have to do is to lose the bias of the fear that we feel when we talk about abortion. We had to do away with that. And all together, always. We are not all of us friends in Argentina. We all have the same goal, however, and that is what builds a movement. Thank you so very much for allowing me this time and for having paid attention to my remarks. Thank you so very much. Thank you. Thank you, dear Monica, for sharing your experience. And what we want to propose in this webinar is that the three experiences we will develop a survey, after which we will have a space for dialogue with the presenters, and we will be able to do this orally, also raising some questions or comments in the chat. So once again, dear Monica, thank you so much. And with this, we now give the floor to share the experience of Catholics for Choice in Colombia. And for this, we are joined by our very dear friend and colleague, Sandra MAZO. Allow me to introduce her by saying that she is a Magister in Political Studies and International Relations. She has a BA in Spanish literature, and she has carried out studies in gender, human rights. She directs Catholics for Choice in Colombia, an organization that is part of our Latin American Caribbean network of Catholics for Choice. Furthermore, she is part of Causa Justa, which is the initiative that, through a suit to the Constitutional Tribunal, has managed to eliminate the crime, abortion as a crime, up to the 24th week. So, dear Sandra, welcome. Allow me to remind you that you have 15 minutes for your presentation. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Paula. Can everybody hear me well? Yes? Okay. Well, I'm so excited, so moved. Whenever I listen to Monica, I'm moved by the process in Argentina. It makes me vibrate in my soul and makes me very nervous, even in this scenario among friends and partners and allies. I have this fear of sharing our experience with all of you, but it's wonderful to be in this space. Thank you to RFSU, Fos Feminista, to my dear friends and sisters, accomplices, members of the Latin American and Caribbean Network, and everybody who has joined this conversation. Thank you for enabling this meeting. And to tell you that, well, I'm so emotional right now. In Colombia, we are living so many different experiences at the same time. And this makes us fearful. In 15 days, we will be holding presidential elections in this country, and we are really placing more bets on the future. So there's a lot of emotions around this experience. And I hope to be able, Paula, in only 15 minutes to share this with you, because please let me know when my 15 minutes are up. Well, first of all, Catholics for Choice in Colombia is the Latin American network. We are, to the extent that we have managed to evolve and to develop from the collective to us, the strength that we've received by being part of this mesh of a network, which is Latin American Caribbean Network, is what has given us life and the reason to grow. So listening to Monica and each experience of each Latin American sister that traverses through this process, which is the right to choose, has really encouraged us to be able to give meaning to what we are. So to me, first and foremost, it's important to share this experience of what we are as a collective in Latin America that has given us an identity, a strength. Perhaps we are not so many in individual countries, but to know that we are members of a strong network that exists everywhere else has really been a significant encouragement. In Colombia, Catholics has been here for 22 years, and our process has been based on partnership and articulation. Most of all, this has been very, very important, and I want to insist in my conversation because unlike many other Latin American countries, we in Colombia, in these years of struggle and fight to make headway in relation to sexual and reproductive rights, and particularly in relation to the agenda aimed at decriminalizing abortion, we've managed to accomplish this within an environment of war, a context of advocating and defending human rights, and where we've lived a historical conflict, this civil war, that while in the rest of Latin America, one way or the other, these were situations that became resolved in the political, sociocultural, and military environment. In Colombia, this has remained. So we have had to fight our fight within this social, cultural, political, armed conflict. These right wings, extremist right wings that have not provided an opportunity so that advocating for human rights to be able to, with great dignity, and where the resistance capacity of peoples has has not been able to develop. So we have had to bear the burden of a lot of deaths and threats. It is a Colombian context that really hurts us, but to fight amidst all this is what forces that our sexual and reproductive rights, a struggle for these rights, is approached from a comprehensive perspective of what it means to defend the body as the first territory of peace, the body as the first legitimate territory of the many numerous political struggles. So for us Catholics, for Choice in Colombia has been essential not to ever work alone, but always in partnership, always in the middle of how among contradictions and conflicts, we are really aiming at things greater than ourselves. So this is why we have witnessed beautiful partnerships in terms of advancing in the field of sexual and reproductive rights in Colombia. We witnessed the first sentence or decision C-325 that decriminalized abortion on the basis of 3 causes for exception. We believed in a new possibility to experience as a women's movement, always via Congress. When Mónica Roja arrived, Catholics for Choice believed in her proposals, and we really fought along with her. And this is the result of a struggle that was a joint struggle along with her, and led us to believe that perhaps constitutionally through this avenue it would be possible. So this is like a constant celebrations, a constant celebratory environment. And this is an effort that we worked in partnership with numerous organizations. Catholics for Choice we held a conversation in a place that we always felt very important, because almost always the argument focused on human rights, equal gender, public health, and Catholics for Choice always said we have to locate this conversation as a matter of social justice. If we do not talk about the very deep, profound inequities that the gaps that women who undergo an abortion, real blood and fresh women, if we do not approach this situation from a perspective of inequalities, it's very difficult for our society to connect with this discussion. So this was our major first contribution that ended with this decision, was to raise the need that we should consider inequalities, how they impact differently women. They do not impact women in the same way, but young and poor and rural women, those who have less access to appropriate socioeconomic conditions, are the ones that face the most structural conditions of violence in terms of access and the right to sexual and reproductive rights. So that was our contribution. Catholics has always been partner to the most heartfelt causes of the social movement, and that is why we believe that we can celebrate, because we do this as a collective. No egos. We don't want to be the star that shines in this debate. We are workers who work in favor of this and many other causes, which at the end of the day is our collective cause. And that is why we believe that we started based on partnering in this struggle to decriminalize abortion. And this criterion was to approach this from the social movement. We as Catholic for Choice say we are part of the social movement. We are part of the feminist movement. We are part of the resistance and the rebelliousness of a people that does no longer want a status quo, a people that resists violence as the only alternative for change. And this is where we've positioned ourselves. A lot of people don't like us, don't want us. A lot of people in this rebelliousness, and when I say that they don't want us, I'm talking about the state and religious power. This is the power that we're challenging, because they don't like what we say. Because the question they always ask us is, how can women be feminists? And even feminists ask us, how can feminist women can be Catholic? And they don't place us anywhere. And so we disrupt certain structures, that we remove them from their comfort zones, and from where we position ourselves is where we advocate, we resist, we contribute. And this has been our life project, which is the right for choice of women. And this is how we arrived at Causa Justa. Causa Justa also provided us the opportunity to once again partner. In Colombia, we've always been in initiatives that bring us together. All those of us who, in one way or the other, have been traversing the same roads, and Causa Justa presents itself as an initiative that we found interesting, that convenes us, articulates us, different organizations under a dream that was a common dream. It was not a single dream of a single group. It is a common dream, a historical struggle of many organizations that have struggled, that have fought for the decriminalization of abortion. Causa Justa introduced this initiative under which we came together. And if this would have not been the case, it would not have achieved the strength that it has now, because a single initiative on its own is senseless. And this is why many of us said we believe in this organization. We've been struggling for 16 years with the three causes for exception, numerous inequalities, obstacles to guarantee these exceptions. We believe that the time is now to take a step forward. And that is why when we are invited to be part of Causa Justa, we never thought it twice. We said, this is the right time to eliminate the right of abortion from the penal code. That is a major obstacle that we have in Colombia, the fact that it exists in the penal code. We have to delete it from there, and we have to locate abortion within its fair dimension. It is a matter of health. It is an issue that raises a social discussion, because this is a matter of course, it's legal. We require a legal framework, of course, but it is equally important to have a framework of legitimacy to be imprinted on the conversation. And Causa Justa convenes us around considering this framework of conversation, of legitimacy, and to consider common strategies coming from different languages to think ourselves how to accomplish this amidst a right-wing institutionality, a social and political situation that is very complex in this country. We realize that the right moment never exist for these initiatives. We have to create the opportunities ourselves. So in Causa Justa, that is precisely what we did, to bring together efforts, expertises. We developed 90 arguments that were the support that enabled us to consider the strategies that we've been developing through Causa Justa. And one of those strategies was to sue the Constitutional Court. We introduced this in September after preparing ourselves for a number of months, even years. This preparation, I don't know, Paula, whether my time is up. You still have 5 more minutes. So in these last 5 minutes, this preparation, I really want to insist on this because this is what allowed us to develop this very strong argument. We knew that we had sued the court and that there existed a decision for the 3 causes of exception, and it would not be easy to bring forward new arguments that would arrive at a new decision. So Causa Justa, what it manages, in addition to developing this suit, allowed us to be sufficiently consistent in our arguments to show to the Colombian state through the Constitutional Court and through the conversation that we proposed, to show them that there was still an outstanding item. There was something that the Colombian state still owed its people in terms of abortion, and that is why we raised 6 arguments. Of all those 90 arguments that we developed initially, we prioritized 6 very, very strong arguments that were the support of this suit. And very happy because out of these 6 arguments, 4 of those arguments were considered by the Constitutional Tribunal to say that nothing had been judged, that the debate could be reopened and it could lead to a new decision on abortion. 4 arguments that open up this conversation. I want to underscore these 4 arguments, all of which are marvelous. I want to underscore the the contribution of Catholics for Choice, which was the argument of the freedom of conscience. Today we can say, and I'm going to show them because I'm so excited, so moved. This is the decision of the court that we received it last year. Decision 055 of 2022, and one of those is based on the freedom of conscience, that we feel it like one of our offsprings, because what it gave us the reason, it gave women the reason to show that when a woman undergoes an abortion, she does so based on her freedom of choice, on her freedom of conscience, on her legitimate right to choose, that neither the state, nor the legislators, nor the physician, nor anybody else can decide whether a woman should abort or not. And that deadline that the Constitutional Court provided us, 24 weeks, something that we were not asking for, Causa Justa was asking to eliminate the crime. We were not indicating any deadline for the legal interruption of a pregnancy, but that deadline of 24 weeks provided us a margin of freedom, because women can undergo an abortion without explaining anything, only based on their freedom of choice, freedom of conscience. And this is highly revolutionary, very powerful in terms of the historical struggle of the feminist movement in the world, because we've managed to lay a precedent to show that the freedom to choice is a very strong and powerful argument when opening a norm that will provide us the agency, something so important for Catholics, that is the moral agency that we women have to make decisions. So I really celebrate these 4 considerations that were considered. There was another argument, which is that of social justice. The Constitutional Court considered that the poorest women, the women who are the most vulnerable, those who are irregular migrants, these women are the greatest victims of barriers against abortion, against access to abortion. So these are very, very powerful arguments. These 4 arguments that the court considered have great value, the 5 organizations that really placed our hearts, our souls in this suit, and to start convening and inviting and increasingly more and more organizations became part of this initiative. That has also helped us as Colombian women to reaffirm that we can, that even amidst the adversities in our countries, we can manage, we can achieve such powerful things. I always say that when we come together and we leave our differences aside and we are capable of coming together under a very fair, just cause, we are so strong and so powerful. So I believe, and in closing, I believe that this achievement, this accomplishment of Causa Justa was also possible to place in the mindsets of our people a conversation to raise the issue of abortion as a matter of justice and human rights, something that tells us that we have to work for what MÓNICA was explaining. How do we decriminalize abortion, and how do we start to destigmatize and decriminalize consciousness? Because something that also moves us is the conscience of someone. An abortion may be legal, may be allowed, but there are consciousness that are criminalized in people who believe that abortion is evil. And this is a work that we are doing, highly inspired. And I have to recognize ourselves here. The scenario was not the political scenario that moved us to make the decision for this suit. It was Latin America that placed this scenario. It was the green wave, the scenario for us to be able to move ourselves here in Colombia, to move ahead with this legal suit, was to have this feminist movement, Argentina and Mexico, all these wonderful things that were occurring. So this power of the power of this green wave was what created the social and political space in order for our Causa Justa to be able to fly. And I am a great advocate, and I love to recognize that the strength of our feminist movement and the women's movement in Latin America is what has allowed us to be so powerful in each of our countries to pave ways. And I am so thankful of Argentina for having inspired us with this green wave, because this also has generated this trust. Whenever we see anywhere a woman, we may not know her, but she's wearing this green kerchief, we know that she's an accomplice. There is love. And this is what has brought us together as a strong movement. We in Colombia are trying to build a movement. I believe that we are taking steps. We are taking steps to become a true great movement. It's not easy because of our context, but I feel that this achievement with this decision of the court is providing the space so that the conversation will fly to all the different territories in the country, and increasingly more and more women will become motivated. And this is an endless road, and we have to take this road, and we need to reach everywhere in the world to show that it's possible to approach abortion not only from the standpoint of laws and norms, but also from the legitimacy of women's right to choose. So this conversation is so inspiring. I hope that in 15 days, I will be celebrating a new government in Colombia and not crying, because anything goes. So thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you, Sandra. This is the best way for us to share experience. Causa Justa, the movement in Argentina. And again, we have comments in the chat. We are going to ask you to listen to our third speaker from Mexico. and then we're going to open the floor to hear you all. I have the honor and privilege of introducing our colleague, also from Catholics for Choice Mexico, AIDÉ García Hernández. I am going to tell you about her. She is the Secretary of Social Labor for the National Autonomous University in Mexico, feminist activist. She defends the rights of women. She's been a member of official delegations in multilateral organizations at the UN, and she's been contributing to the reform that will allow the interruption of pregnancy in Mexico City and other provinces. Also, she's been supporting constitutional reform in human rights in 2011 and the constitutional reform to the 40th article of the Constitution that recognizes these issues. She also was part of the drafters of the text in the city of Mexico and part of the Latin American and Caribbean network of Catholics for Choice. She's been working in workshops in Latin America and the Caribbean. She is an advisor of the Commission for Human Rights in Mexico, and she's the chairperson of the National Institute of Women, the Consultative Commission, and co-director of Catholics for Choice Mexico, and she's been working there for more than 21 years. AIDÉ, it's a pleasure to have you here. You have the floor. And you have 15 minutes, AIDÉ. Thank you very much. For me, it's a pleasure to be here, to be able to talk about the experience and the work undertaken by Catholics for Choice during this long history of getting moral authority, liberty of conscience, actually is defended. I want to thank Catholics for Choice, Voz Feminista, RFSU, for this opportunity. As Sandra was saying, this is not a work we do alone. We do it as we work with our partners, strategic partners in the region. And in fact, the work has to be accompanied by those with whom we share the cause. From Mexico, we'll be sharing with you our experience in what we've done to decriminalize abortion. We prepared a presentation. Can we see the next slide? In Mexico, we've been working for 28 years. Catholics was created in the framework of the Zapatista movement in Mexico, fighting for social justice. That was our origin. And those were important points in time. The Zapatista movement in Mexico was growing at the time, and also we had a government that had no political legitimacy and tried to get legitimacy to give benefits to the Catholic Church. So it's important to look at the historical context that led to the creation of Catholics for Choice in Mexico. Our proposal is a movement of feminist Catholic people that defend human rights, and especially everything that has to do with the exercise of sexuality and human reproduction. So Catholics for Choice Mexico was created in that context. What do we do? What have we done in 28 years? We had 3 pillars. We made visible and made the voices heard of people who are believers but promote freedom of conscience and the recognition of moral capacity to make ethical decisions on our lives. That's a fundamental pillar for Catholics. Also, from that perspective, we support and implement public policies to change the legal frameworks that not only have to do with changes in rules and norms, but also because we are convinced that the defense of a laic state, a lay state, guarantees human rights and the full exercise of those rights. We also create communities. We support transformation. We create links, partnerships with organizations, with movements, because as we started to build our community in Mexico, saying we are part of the feminist movement, part of the human rights movement, we created collectively with other organizations and movements, and now with this green wave, which is a very important movement that has been defending the right to choose for women. We also work on very specific issues, and we are centering our work as Catholics for Choice. We have an added value as we defend sexual and reproductive rights, but also the decriminalization of abortion. We work for desired maternity, for sexual freedom, sexual orientations, identities, and gender expressions, a very important issue that links us today to other movements. Also, the right to a life free of violence and for a lay state and religious pluralism. And we believe that now it's important to fight for that, because throughout the history of this fight for the right of abortion, there's an important actor, and those are religious conservatives that oppose these freedoms. What we do in our contribution to decriminalize abortion in Mexico, we promote and disseminate ethical religious arguments, and we make visible the different Catholic positions around abortion. We know that the Catholic Church is not a monolith, and within it, there's an important actor. Not always what the Catholic Church says is what the right to decide of women means. We believe the state should be lay an indispensable condition to support sexual and reproductive rights, and we also disseminate material campaign to fight against the conservative discourse of the Catholic Church when we want to make changes in the law. We have to generate a discourse that will be against those conservative discourses. We also have campaigns for decriminalization, and we have arguments that we include in the public debate and the political debate when these discussions arise. In Mexico is a federation where we always have to think about articulation for each state. Each state in Mexico has specific contexts, has specific political actors, and we work by discussing decriminalization of abortion, but an important point is that we do it always insisting on the fact that the state has to be a lay state and the defense of women has to be seen within the framework of human rights, ensuring the right to decide on sexuality, freedom, and we need to have freedom of conscience, freedom of belief, freedom of expression. How do we link? How can we contribute not only to legal changes, but also social decriminalization? And how do services and programs are offered, provided, so the right to decide of women, pregnant women, young women can become effective? We do training for healthcare professionals on conscientious objections, and we promote the public policy related to the right to choose. In Mexico, for example, we have won several battles, and these battles start adding up, leading to the recognition of free abortion. We have Law 046 or Rule 046 that allows women to have access to safe, free abortion when they've been a victim of sexual violence. So this works to ensure that women have access to abortion through public policy. Historically, our support started in 2002 when we created the National Alliance for the Right to Decide. We are never alone, as somebody said. We work collectively. In 2002, we created this National Alliance for the Right to Decide. There were 5 organizations that got together. That includes Catholics for Choice. And it was there that we started to contribute more and more. Catholics for Choice have done public surveys where we talked about the different positions of Catholics in terms of sexuality and moral sexuality. Not all Catholics are against abortion, as the Church, Catholic Church says. And it's important to say that, to make it visible. Also, the Catholics, more than 80%, disagree with the fact that the church leaders, Catholic and evangelical leaders, should intervene in the generation of public policies and legal changes. And that's a political actor we include in the debate, because we want to counter the conservative religious voices that oppose these processes. We also contribute to the changes in programs and official norms. And in 2007, for Mexico, we've had a very important change. Abortion was decriminalized in the city of Mexico. Catholics had a very important contribution in the debate against the Catholic leadership that talk about excommunicating people for abortion. Those threats, those discourses were used in Mexico by the leaders of the conservative churches to threaten those who want to change laws to legalize abortion. And also, we have been, during these years, we've been working on different processes that have led to these legal changes within the framework of the law, but also in the generation of public opinion that's been favorable to the decriminalization of abortion. In last April, we celebrated 15 years since abortion was decriminalized in the city of Mexico. We, for more than 10 years, 12 years, we fought after the decriminalization in the city of Mexico, where we saw many backlashes. These battles, these advances have meant threats, have been steps backwards as we fight for the right to abortion. But we were motivated to fight in other states in the country. In 2019, after a long battle, abortion was decriminalized in Oaxaca. For us, that was very important. And the things changed completely after many years when things were not moving in the legal framework. And we have to underscore that, like in Colombia and in Argentina, political actors and also the change in the legal framework and the decision of our Supreme Court last year led to important changes that allowed us to face the changes we've had recently in Mexico. The Supreme Court in its decision said that to penalize abortion is unconstitutional and goes against our rights. That decision by the Supreme Court is very important. They also said that the protection of life from the moment of conception cannot be used as an obstacle to have access to health care and sexual and reproductive rights of women. Another point expressed by the Supreme Court is that conscientious objections have to be regulated because it is used as an obstacle for the right to decide of women. So for us, the fact that the Supreme Court said what they said, using arguments that we've been using for so many years, we believe that's very relevant. And in this process, we have contributed in the construction of alliances and social mobilization. We have here our colleagues in the different states as they fought for abortion. We were in Puebla, we were in Veracruz, in Hidalgo, Sinaloa, Baja California, Guerrero, Baja California Sur last week, South Baja California, and this has generated a great movement, and we see here what we do, how we contribute permanently with ethical, religious arguments in favor of a lay state so that we are part of the political and public debates. Catholics have always created community. We are parts of networks, articulations, movements, nationally and regionally.
We also collaborate with a lot of political stakeholders in the country. We promote the right to choose, we promote the lay state, we promote public policies that guarantee a full enjoyment of sexual and reproductive rights, including legal and safe abortion. And for this as well, we in Catholics for Choice have developed a number of articulations. Last year, we also appointed ambassadors for layness, a network that was developed by advocates for lay state who are activists of the human rights movement who work advocating for a lay state and who raise arguments primarily to counteract religious fundamentalisms. And also in this case, we have a group for spiritual support, which is a group of theologians who are members from different religions who also support women and people who are in the process of making a decision to interrupt their pregnancy or who have already done so. So this spiritual support group plays a fundamental role in these decisions. And we also created at the regional level, Libres las queremos, or free we want them, which is an articulation that we continue supporting in order to expand articulation in this struggle for the right to choose. And also in this respect, we need a very important communication strategy, which is also part and parcel of everything that articulates and brings together the work that Catholics for Choice in Mexico carries out. And also in this strategic communication, we've developed different ways and narratives of our arguments for different platforms. And we also meet and address different audiences, and that also is very important. So this is a sample on how we've developed this community in social digital networks, and we're exploring new ways of innovative communication that will approach us closer to those who follow us in the social media and all these platforms. And this is something that we also consider extremely important, is that we work to communicate with all people in an inclusive manner. We contribute here in the work to disseminate sexual and reproductive rights with deaf people, hearing impaired people, and very distinct tools are developed for this particular population group. And we communicate in different languages for our indigenous communities. Here we have some TV spots in the Zapoteco language of Oaxaca, in which we disseminate the concept of decriminalizing abortion so that the women in these indigenous rural communities also receive information of what this has entailed. The decriminalization of abortion has been all about in Oaxaca, and other communication strategies aimed at social decriminalization that is related to our work in the different territories and in virtual communication, social media, etc. And I must also share with you the very hard work that we've done. We've celebrated our 10th anniversary of presence in the social media, and as you all know, Catolicadas is a cartoon on sexuality, gender, and religions, which presents different stories of Catholic individuals who face the conflict and the moral dilemma of the abortion-related decisions. So Catolicadas for us is a very, very important tool that is also very closely related not only to contributing to the social change, to the social decriminalization of abortion, but also for advocacy purposes, because there we deal with different subjects targeting different audiences. And if I'm allowed an additional minute, I can show you a short video of Catolicada celebrating these 10 years of existence. Catolicada celebrates its 10th anniversary, 10 years in which we show that you can be a believer and a feminist, in which we reconcile faith with freedom so that all individuals can decide over our bodies with autonomy. 10 years building another society, another church where people are not discriminated against, pointed out, or judged due to their social orientation, gender, marital situation, social or ethnic origin. The church is a veritable community. Come, friar, help me to ring the bells. Me first. Congratulations. See you soon. Very well. Thank you very much. And we remain at your disposal for questions, comments. Thank you so very much, dear AIDÉ. Inspires us all in all our work and our efforts with these extraordinary tools that you've been developing, which do not only target different audiences, they also target ourselves within the network. So thank you very much. And this space provided to our three speakers, MÓNICA, MENINI, SANDRA, MAZO, and AIDÉ GARCÍA, so that we can now ask questions or comments in the chat. There's a lot of congratulations to each and every one of you, expressing our appreciation. Specifically, Ms. Magena Morales from Bolivia asks whether, dear Sandra, whether you can share with us the 90 arguments that you developed. Are they in a single publication? Could you share that publication with us? With all the different arguments that you came up with for causa justa, and particularly in the case of Bolivia. Well, in the web page of Causa Justa, what's the web page again? Well, www, whatever, causajusta.org. Causa Justa por el aborto.org. There you can download the document with the 90 arguments. Thank you so very much, Sandra. And does anybody have a question or comment, want to take the floor? Or do you want to make a comment, to add anything else? This is time to do so. Please raise your hand, and because we've now opened the Q&A session. Or if you want to write it in the chat, we can read it. We can read your questions or comments from the chat. While somebody comes up with an inspiration to ask a question or to make a comment, I also want to thank you all for the comments that you've posted in the chat, to our dear Maria Jose Rosado from Brazil, as well as Magali Rincon, who also extends her congratulations, and Marilia Vilena, who has also asked about the 90 arguments in the chat. You'll find the web page of Causa Justa, also from El Salvador, congratulating our colleagues. And they are an inspiration to the processes that we are all experiencing, as well as in Ecuador with Clara Menino, and who's also requesting a summary and the recording of this webinar. And it is available on our YouTube page. And we will also be posting the recordings translated into Portuguese and into English. With this, I give the floor to Sandra. We were looking through the Causa Justa webpage, and we do not find the document with the 90 documents. Perhaps we have not made them public, but what I can do, if somebody is interested, is to send it to you privately. We have it in the digital format, so please write to us directly to our email, and we can share the text, because for security reasons, it was not posted publicly. Thank you very much, dear Sandra. So if you can write your email address in the chat so that people can address you directly, for you to be able to share these arguments to the different organizations and individuals who may have an interest in them. Lisette Pereira, also from Brazil, Crisia Rosas, also from Brazil, are also congratulating our speakers. If there are no further questions, comments, congratulations, then I would like to give back the floor to Luna Borges so that she can come up with a short summary and conclusions of the webinar and of these shared experiences. Allow me to introduce Luna Borges, part of one of our partner organizations from Voz Feminista, so supportive of this webinar. She's a senior officer in strategy and impact. So, dear Luna, thank you so very much for sharing this space with us. And if you can share these final conclusions that these experiences of Catholics for Choice in Argentina, Colombia, and Mexico have left us with. Luna, you have the floor.
El que tú elijas, querida compañera, porque tenemos los
The one you choose, dear colleague, because we have interpretation available.
I will speak in Portuguese. Let me thank the organizations that are here. And as Monica said, the people. These events are built by people. The spaces are built by people. It's an immense joy to be here. We've had so many virtual meetings, but so many difficult things happening in the world, including in our countries. It's a privilege and it's urgent to listen to you all. I learn a lot and I'm inspired by your interventions. And I have 5 things I thought about to summarize this marvelous meeting. And also I have Daphne's Huerta's question. We have to build and strengthen the fight for a legal abortion regionally. So I have these 5 points and many others that we will be discussing throughout our lives and that will be contributing to this, Daphne. First, something Monica said. I think it's fundamental to think that our countries, including Argentina, are made up of different territories. There are many different areas in Argentina, and it's important to think of narratives. And she gave us the example of the legal abortion and not just non-punishable abortion, reflecting the needs of people, of territories. It's not something capricious. Abortion has to be legal, free, within a system of healthcare work so that everybody, even though, especially those who cannot pay and who have several layers of oppression, can have access to that. And I think that was very powerfully posited. We have to think about reproductive rights, and in the US, as we see all the step backwards are going through. Second point, another point mentioned by Sandra when she talked about Colombia. CDD brought, or Catholics for Choice, brought arguments to talk about decriminalization, to erase abortion from the penal code, and also freedom of conscience. Activist voices show us that for the world, the freedom of conscience means to respect the moral agency of women, of young women, and their recognition as people who are subjects of rights. And if we think of freedom, we have to think it from the perspective of social justice, intersectional feminism, and the cultural transformations that we want to have with progressive theologies have to be seen in the territory. We seek social justice, thinking of the conditions and the different oppressions that we feel, and talk about women who are the most affected. It's reality. It is not something that is just a discourse to talk about those women. We have science, we have data. We have more than 90 arguments to defend our arguments, and the courts have to hear. They have to start hearing, and it's very good that in Colombia and Mexico, they started to hear what activists are saying. In Mexico, third point, our colleague AIDÉ talked about the importance of fighting for the space to disobey hierarchies that are not based on rights and do not respect diversity. As Catholics for Choice did that in Mexico using different strategies, training healthcare workers on the right to decide and how they won the battles. These arguments are built not from nothing. It's not just a question of litigation where when the Supreme Court reached a decision that is so progressive in terms of conscientious objection, saying that life cannot be defined from conception to create barriers to abortion. These battles, these arguments that are won as organizations fight are important, and they are the ones that change public policies and bring positive results in litigations. And fourth, the importance to have a space like this for Latin America, a joint reflection of organizations that connect, learn ones from the others, and as Monica said at the beginning, things happen because women meet, because we have networks with arguments, evidence, techniques, love, with different groups, professionals, activists, educators, universities, communicators. Why not do it regionally, trans-regionally? This is urgent. That's how change takes place. And we have to build spaces of solidarity, which is important for our region that faces enormous inequalities, violence, historical conflicts that we have not been able to leave behind, humanitarian crisis, activists at risk. The violence of fundamentalists is real in the life of people. And we need to strengthen and to take care of one of the other collectively, because when we talk about injustice, we are fighting against power, and there are consequences to that, but we have to do it now. It is a time colored by green. It's a wave that was tired of listening to people that said it's not the time to talk about abortion. The moment is now. And the fifth point is, like Griselda said, we have a very long way ahead of us. And I hope that one day, I saw Denise here, I hope we'll be able to talk about the decriminalization of abortion in Brazil. I hope we can say that about the Dominican Republic. And the legalization of abortion, that's a constant struggle. That's why we need social decriminalization, and we need to build spaces like this to continue working to build hope. And can conclude with words that are not mine. They're Ivone Guevara's, a feminist theologian that I met when I was very young. And she's been talking about the importance of thinking of abortion not as a crime. Our victories against darkness and ignorance as temporary as our lives are renewed like the air that we breathe, the forests that are born again, mankind, humanity that is reborn from generation to generation. Learning has no end. If you have ears, listens. Is based on the change of life, our beauty, creativity that forces us to seek creativity. I would like to thank you for having heard you and learned so much from you. We continue together. Thank you, Luna. Fabulous and inspiring words. But we don't want to conclude without listening to Paula José Rosado, our dear colleague from CBD Brazil, so she can also take the floor. And we would like to thank you for all your congratulations and all your words. They're saying that this is very moving. Thank you. Maria Jose, you have the floor. We want to hear your question or your comment. And then we have our three colleagues who will afterwards concluding it. Please.
Well, first of all, I already posted in the chat was to congratulate the network for this initiative to come together, to bring us all together for these discussions, to listen to the experiences and what is being done in each of our countries. Extremely important. This space is so important. To apologize to Luna that I follow in her remarks, but I had to leave for a second. I could not listen to her remarks completely, and that is why I have asked for the floor at this moment. I want to make a comment from the Brazilian perspective, and I don't know what Luna thinks about this and other Brazilian members in this webinar, but I believe that we face a challenge. How do you say it in Spanish? Desafío, right? Challenge. With the feminist movement, because what always happens is to say that it is not the right time. So I loved to hear from Sandra that it was not the political moment that made them become part of the struggle in the way that they did. And also when I heard Luna say that the time is now, this is essential to say, not to say that never is the time right for us. Why? Because as Luna said, we disrupt the powers, the patriarchy, the hierarchies, religious hierarchies. We disrupt them. So it is never our time. We have to make it our time. We want to make it our time. This is our time. And why do we want it now? And now I believe, Luna, that it is very, very important in Brazil at this time when there was a remark from former President Lula, and everybody reacted to say, no, I should not be saying it. He didn't say anything different to what he had always been saying. I personally am against, but I believe that it must be a public policy, a public health policy. And he had an initiative in his administration to set up a committee that we called it a tripartite committee with representatives from the executive branch of power, so civil society, and I don't know who else. I think it was the legislative power. And we must not take a step backwards. We must affirm and reaffirm. And it is not because it is the electoral times that we should stop saying this out loud. And yesterday we had a public hearing in our Congress, in the Chamber of Deputies, and Catholics for Choice was there to say that one of our demands, because it was to present demands from civil society, one of our demands is that abortion is legalized in the country, as was done in Argentina and Colombia and Mexico. But it was the only organization out of 87 who were present that raised the issue of abortion. So to say that I am always inspired when I hear you, and I love to hear you say that we have this support to say also in Brazil for the women's movement, for the political left to say, well, we are going to make it our time. Final stop. And this is what I wanted to say and to express such gratitude. I would love to be able to greet you in person, but this is this is the greetings of people who have been living for several decades. So we become so nostalgic of our colleagues and in-person meetings. That is what I wanted to say. Thank you so very much. Thank you, dear Berta. You are always an inspiring force and an essential member of our network. To ask you one final minute, I will be adjourning our webinar shortly, but I do not want to close without allowing our dear MÓNICA, MENINI, SANDRA, MAZO, and our other speakers to bid farewell. Thank you. AIDÉ, GARCÍA, SANDRA, MAZO, and MÓNICA, MENINI. Please go ahead. You have the final remarks. Well, AIDÉ, perhaps you wanted to make use of the floor. That is why I remain expectant. Very important, the final remarks of Maria Jose Rosado. It is never the right time. That's right. And another issue. So in order for us to be together, so that this sorority, Latin American sorority and brotherhood, with respect to expanding not only the right to abortion, but other provision of rights that are still lacking in Latin America and the Caribbean. We forget about the Caribbean sometimes. We also continue working each and every day to support and sustain what we've accomplished, in order to sustain what we've accomplished, because it is always a threat that the human rights of women will change to access power or to support yourself once you've accessed power. So I always want to leave behind these final conclusions in our work, in our discussions, and in our agreements, that we have to constantly insist in carrying forward this effort all together. Thank you very much. Andrita, go ahead, please. Well, I support what has been said. I thank everybody who has enabled this meeting. It's always such a pleasure to come together. These meetings are highly inspiring, just as the struggles and the accomplishments inspire us. These meetings also inspired us. So it's wonderful to continue lighting all these fires, as Carlos Galeano says. Together we are very powerful, dear sisters, and the right time never exists. We are the ones who create our time, and let us hope that we never disavow this resistance, this effort to struggle, to fight, this theology for liberation, which for Catholic for Choice has been such an inspiration. This feminist rebelliousness. We fight together with the people, the normal people. And at least for me, what inspires and the most is in this struggle for the right to choose is to do it from the social justice approach, while there still remains inequalities and these gaps in terms of justice against the poorest from the poor. I feel inspired to fight. So rebelliousness, resistance, and disturbing power. I love you all. And I hope that Petro will be our next president. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. I am sure that that will be the case, Sandra. Well, I also join everybody else in expressing thanks. I'm so pleased with this meeting. It is important to make the contributions that we Catholic for Choice make, to make this visible throughout the region in this struggle for the right to decriminalizing the right for an abortion. Whatever contributions he make in pro of the moral authority of women to counterattack the religious conservative arguments that oppose the free exercise of rights, this is essential, distinguished colleagues. And from my position, I want to reaffirm this commitment for this struggle, and that indeed the moment is ours. Each and every moment is ours, and we will continue fighting to decriminalize abortion, to eliminate these gaps of inequality, and most of all, because I believe as well that this movement of Catholic women is a movement for social justice. And we are all so committed. I'm so happy, and I feel highly honored to be a Catholic for the right to choose. Thank you very much. I'll stop here. Thank you all. We thank the support to thank our FSU for their support and simultaneous interpretation of these 4 interpreters, to the whole communications team of our network, both Nubia, Patricia, Catholics in El Salvador, communications, and everybody who has been involved in this broadcast to make it possible from Colombia, Mexico, and Argentina. We are so thankful to our colleagues from Colombia, SANDRA, Mexico, AIDÉ, for this support, for this sharing, for this motivation that brings about so much hope in our country, as well as the support of our allies. Thank you, Elizabeth and Eva, RFSU, Susana, and Fos Feminista. Thank you, Luna. We are so thankful, and we invite you all to continue be resisting, rebellious for our bodies, for our freedom of consciousness, because together in this, as accomplices, this is a time of hope for Latin America and the Caribbean to become feminist and to make this a law. So to finally invite you all to come up with our kerchief to make this final waving of the handkerchief that characterizes us as Catholics and feminists in pro of free, safe, and legal abortion in our countries. So that our communications teams can take the picture, please let us know right now. Raise our handkerchief. Yes, thank you so much. I have 3 spaces, so I ask you not to close your cameras, because when you do so, the screens move. So unmute your cameras. I will start counting backwards. Just a second. Here I am. Okay, here, so you can see the handkerchief. Okay, very well. 3, 2, 1, snapshot. I'm going to save this, so please remain where you are. Thank you. Second screenshot. Okay.
Tenés apagado el micro. Gracias a todas.
Thank you all. Thank you all. We embrace you from afar. Thank you, Paola, for moderating, and for the Latin American Caribbean Network of Catholics for Choice. So happy with this experience. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.
Un abrazo. Gracias. Chao, chao.
Abrazo a todas.
Gracias a todas, compañeras.
Gracias a todas. Un abrazo gigante.